You know, one of the many myriad of tasks that the common soldier may be required to do in the field, and particularly the medical soldier, is a litter carry. And it's not quite as non-complex as you might think. How you transport a patient can make the difference between whether or not he's comfortable, whether or not he's suffering pain, or whether or not he actually survives from day to day across a battlefield. Because litter carries are so important, and because they're such a major part of what we do in a battlefield situation, we've invited Captain Bluto from the Military Science Division, Colonel Neitzel's team here in the Academy of Health Sciences, to join us here on Studio B this morning and tell us about litter carries. Captain Bluto, how are you this morning?
Pretty good, sir.
You look very trim and military and sharp in your fatigues. I assume that's because this is going to be a very fatiguing event, right?
Not for me, sir.
Not for you. I have a feeling. Well, tell me something. What's the importance of litter carries? I mean, anybody can do it, right? Instantaneously.
Well, it might be, you might think you could just pick up a litter and move out, but there's lots of times you're going to be going over all sorts of terrain, different types of obstacles, in and out of vehicles, buildings, and that things. And there are certain ways that we can do things with the litter. Makes it a lot easier and safer for the patient.
Okay, and that is our primary concern, right?
Absolutely. Safety of the patient.
Okay, well, listen, I know you're anxious to get along with the program, and I know you got some great footage from Camp Bullis, so let me turn it over to you and say good luck.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Good.
The piece of equipment that we will be working with this morning during this presentation is the Army Standard Rigid Litter. This litter is found in all of our gear and facilities and, in fact, all of our field medical units. Now, before we can set the litter up, it's necessary that we undo the strap fasteners from around the litter. This will allow us to grasp the litter rails and open the litter up. Now, you notice that between the litter rails we have two metal devices known as the spreader bars. The spreader bars are put there to lock the litter open and keep the canvas tight. Now, because of the design of the spreader bars, it's very easy to pinch your hand or possibly cut yourself if you open them with your hands. So we recommend that rather you open up the side rails, face the bottom of the litter, and kick the spreader bars open and into place. You'll notice also on the litter we have 4 metal loops called the stirrups. These stirrups are placed on the litter to give you an added degree of protection between your patient and the ground. Obviously, there will be many times when you'll be placing the litter on the ground with rocks or branches or trees or things of that nature much larger than these stirrups. So you should always be careful of where you set your litter down with your patient. Every time you open up a litter and use it, you should always inspect your canvas, ensure there are no large tears in it, and that all of your handles are good and secure. Now, this morning during our class, we're going to be using a variety of commands. Now, some of these commands may be familiar to you and many of them may not be. The important thing when working with a litter team is that you do work as a team. This is not really an individual effort. The patient's safety is foremost, and therefore you want to communicate with each other, talk to each other. So some of the commands we may be using may be a little bit different from what you've heard, but again, the importance is communication among the team. Now, in order to conduct this class, we're going to number our 4 team members so that we can keep track of their movements around the litter. The number 1 person, who is the team leader, will essentially be the 1 medical personnel if you have the luxury of having medical personnel on your litter team. His position will allow him to monitor the head and the patient. The number 1 team leader will be located at the right rear of the litter. In this case, you notice that the number 1 team member is going to place a helmet on the litter so that we can keep track of the patient's head as we move the litter about going through the various carries. Our number 2 team member will be at the right front of the litter. Our number 3 team member at the left rear of the litter, and the number 4 team member at the left front of the litter. It's necessary that we have a means to pick the patient up in a smooth, even manner. We'll do this by giving preparatory commands and commands of execution. On the command, prepare to lift, all 4 team members will drop down with the leg closest to the litter, the knee resting on the ground. Their free leg, the one to the outside of the litter, will be in an upraised position. Their outside arm and hand will rest supporting themselves on that raised leg, and they will grasp their respective litter handles with the hand closest to the litter. On the command lift, all 4 team members will then lift the litter into the air. Once they have the litter into the air, they will give the command, move out. You want to avoid marching orders if you can while you're working with the litter team, because we want the team to stay out of step. Otherwise, we might set up a rocking or a bouncing motion of the litter, which could further injure our patient. Once they've reached the destination, we can give the commands, lower litter. At that time, the team will, under control, set the litter back down on the ground so that their legs and their inside knees again resting on the ground, lifting and lowering the patient with the meaty part of their legs and not their backs. Once they have the patient on the ground, if you want to give your team a break so they can get up and take a rest, you can simply give the command, recover. Demonstration team. Prepare to lift. Lift. They could now move out and cross their area. Lower, litter. Recover. Now the 4-person carry is essentially the best carry to use any time that you can. Obviously, we have the weight of the patient distributed among 4 team members, and it'll be less fatiguing on your team members, and it'll be more safe for the patient. However, we may come upon a time when we have an obstacle that is too narrow to pass through in the 4-person carry, such as very thick vegetation or possibly across a narrow footbridge. For this type of obstacle, we will use the 2-person carry. We'll move into this carry, as we will most of the carries, from the 4-person carry. Once the team has lifted the patient into the air, we'll give the command, 2-person carry move. At that time, the number 1 team member and the number 4 team member will release their litter handles to the number 2 and the number 3 team members. The number 4 team member will move to the rear of the team to follow them through the obstacle. The number 1 team member will move to the head of the team to guide them through the obstacle. Once they've cleared this type of area, they can simply give the command, 4-person carry move, and at that time, the 4 team members would move back to their original positions. Demonstration team. Prepare to lift. Lift. 2-person carry, move.
Got it.
Once they've cleared the obstacle, we can simply give the command, 4-person carry, move. Demonstration team, 4-person carry, move.
Got it. Got it.
Lower litter. Recover. Now we may find that we have an obstacle that's not only too narrow to go through in a 4-person carry, but it may be too low to go through in a full standing position. You may be moving through a very low trench and want to keep a low profile. You may even have to pass through some type of culvert piping under a bridge of some kind. For that, we would use the modified 2-person carry. Again, we'll move from the 4-person carry. The number 1 and the number 4 personnel will release their litter handles, again turning them over to the number 2 and the number 3 team members. However, this time, on this carry and this carry only, the number 2 team member will turn and face the patient. At that time, the number 2 and the number 3 team members will crouch low, presenting a low profile so they can cross under the low obstacle. The number 1 and the number 4 team members will guide the heads and shoulders of the team through the obstacle. Demonstration team, prepare to lift. Lift. Modified 2-person carry, move.
Got it. Got it.
In this manner, they can clear that low obstacle, making sure that they don't drag the litter. Once they've cleared the obstacle, we can give the command, 4-person carry, move.
Got it. Got it.
Lower litter. Recover. Now, many times operating in a field environment, you're going to be walking on some very rough terrain. Maybe heavy rocks through moving water, maybe even some tanglefoot barbed wire. We need a carry that presents a more stable position to the patient. In case one of our team members were to trip and fall, we don't drop the patient. For this type of obstacle, we use the litter post carry. Again, on the litter post carry, from the 4-person carry, the number 1 and the number 4 team members will release their litter handles to the number 2 and the number 3 team members. However, this time the number 1 and the number 4 team members will assume a position along the side rails of the litter. They'll have their feet spread more than shoulder width apart, and their arms will be spread a good distance on the side rails, making sure that they have the full weight of the patient. Demonstration team. Prepare to lift. Lift. Litter post carry. Move.
Got it. Got it.
You've noticed that as these teams have been transferring the weight of the litter, that they have been talking to each other, ensuring that they don't drop the patient. In this carry, if one of our team members, such as the number 2 man, were to trip and fall, the team still has adequate support. Once he recovers himself, he can move right back in to help the team. Demonstration team. 4-person carry. Move.
Got it.
Lower litter. Recover. Now, up to this point, we have been moving with the patient's feet headed in the direction of travel. However, we typically, and normally, not always, but typically will load our ground evacuation vehicles and our air evacuation vehicles with our patient's head moving into the vehicle first. So we need to have a means of rotating the patient. We do that by using the litter post rotation. We'll go to the 4-person carry, then the team will go to the litter post carry. On the litter post carry, on the command prepare to rotate, the number 2 and the number 3 team members will release their ends of the litter and step away. The number 2 team member will turn and face that litter so as to watch it as the number 1 and the number 4 team members rotate it. On the command rotate, the number 1 and the number 4 team members will shuffle step, making sure that they do not cross their feet so that they take a chance of tripping, possibly dropping the patient. As soon as the patient swings back around, the number 2 and the number 3 team members can immediately step back in to help support the weight of the patient and be prepared to load the vehicle. Demonstration team, prepare to lift. Lift. Litter post carry. Move.
Got it. Got it.
Prepare to rotate. You notice that 2 and 3 do release the litter and step away. Rotate. The number 1 and the number 4 team members shuffle stepping, not to cross their feet, rotate the patient's head. Let's look at that once more. Demonstration team, prepare to rotate. Rotate. Four-person carry, move.
Got it. Got it.
Lower litter. Recover. Now, we've also, up to this point, been talking about simply moving on flat, even terrain. Obviously, in a field environment, you can't be counted on moving in flat land all the time. So we need to have carries that allow us a better stable position for moving a patient uphill and downhill. We'll look at the uphill carry first. The team will first lift the patient and move into the four-person carry. On the command uphill carry move, there's something that we'll need to do before that, however, and that is to rotate the patient. As we said, we've been moving with the patient's feet heading in the direction of travel. However, when we go up a hill, we again want to rotate the patient. And the reason is that if we drop the patient with the head facing up the hill, it would have less distance to fall before it possibly hit the ground, thereby lessening the chances of injury, as moving an uphill patient can be rather difficult sometimes. So once the team goes to the four-person carry, the first thing they'll do will be to go into the litter post carry, then they will rotate the patient, and then move into the uphill carry. As a litter is moved uphill with a patient at an incline, the weight of the litter is going to kind of shift to the rear of the litter. So we need to have a carry that gives some additional support to the rear of the litter. after we've rotated the patient on the command uphill carry move, the number 4 team member will slide to the rear of the litter to assist the number 3 team member in the additional weight we now have found at the rear of the litter. They're also responsible this time to try to keep the litter level as the team moves up the hill. The number 1 team member, the team leader, will move to the head of the team to guide the team up the hill. Demonstration team, prepare to lift. Lift. Litter post carry, move.
Got it. Got it.
Again, because we've come to the bottom of the hill, we need to rotate the patient. Prepare to rotate. Rotate. Uphill carry, move. Number 4 team member moves to the rear. The number 1 team member moves to guide them up the hill. Once they have reached the top of the hill, they again can go back to the litter post carry and rotate the patient if in fact they're going to move on. Demonstration team, litter post carry, move.
Got it.
Prepare to rotate. Rotate. 4-person carry, move.
Got it. Got it.
Lower, litter. Recover. Now, not only may we initially come to an uphill, but we may initially come to a downhill. Much like the uphill carry, the weight of that patient is going to shift as we start to move down the hill. Therefore, we need a carry that's going to give some additional support to the front of the litter. From the 4-person carry, on the command downhill carry move, the number 2 and the number 4 team members will turn and face each other. They'll now place both hands on their litter handle and sidestep down the hill. The number 1 team member will release his litter handle to the number 3 team member, and he will move to the front to add support to the team by placing his hands possibly on their shoulders to help them as they move down the hill. Again, it's the number 2 and the number 4 team members' responsibility to keep the litter level as they move down the hill. Demonstration team, prepare to lift. Lift. Downhill carry, move.
Got it.
In this manner, as the team goes down the hill, they can possibly prevent the patient from falling. Once they reach the bottom of the hill, we give the command 4-person carry. Demonstration team, 4-person carry, move.
Got it.
Lower, litter. Recover. Now, we might come upon a time when you're operating in a trench system again, a tall one which you can be standing up in, however so narrow that you can't maneuver through it and make the normal turns you would with a litter. You also might be moving through a river, a pond of some nature in which you need to keep your patient high and up out of the water. For that, we use the overhead carry. We'll move into the overhead carry from the 4-person carry. On the preparatory command overhead carry, the 4 team members will turn and face each other. They will look at each other, opposite sides of the litter, to determine which of them is the taller. They do this because eventually we hope to have all 4 team members directly underneath the litter with the litter supported overhead. The taller team member will move to the outside ends of the litter. The shorter team members will be moving to the inside of the litter. Now, the taller members will be placing their hands at the ends of the litter so that they are touching the canvas for better support, not way out on the ends of the litter handles. The shorter team members on the inside of the litter, if they can't reach the side rails of the litter, can use the stirrups of the litter to support that weight. They will also ensure that once they have the patient overhead, they will kind of snap their elbows into a lock position to help support the weight of the patient overhead. Now, prior to this, once they've determined who's moving to the inside and who is moving to the outside, under the team leader's command, he will be using portions of his body, simply waist, stomach, chest, shoulders, head, and all the way up, to try to keep the team together so that they keep the litter level, don't take a chance of dropping the patient. Once they've got the litter overhead, they will move into the positions that they had arrived at earlier. They would then move through the obstacle. Once they have cleared that obstacle, they would then simply give the command, 4-person carry move. At that time, the 4 team members could then move back out to their original positions, and again, the team leader, using portions of his body, would talk the team down. Demonstration team. Prepare to lift. Lift. Overhead carry. You notice that they turn, now determining who's moving to the inside and who's moving to the outside. On the command move, the team leader will talk the litter into the air. Demonstration team. Overhead carry. Move.
Stomach, chest, head, move it all the way up.
Notice that the members on the team do in fact have their hands up on the canvas, and that the shorter team members also have their hands on the stirrups. This allows them to provide that support needed for the patient's weight. Once they clear the obstacle, we'll give the command, 4-person carry move, and at that time the team will lower the litter back down on the ground. Demonstration team. 4-person carry move.
Got it. Okay, bring it down to your head, chest, waist, all the way down.
Notice that they automatically turn and face forward, ready to continue on with their patient. Demonstration team. Lower, litter, recover. Now, we've talked about a great many different obstacles, and these carries can be used in a varied combination, whatever going to be used by your common sense. The next carry we're going to do is for that obstacle, which is essentially the only way we can get through it or by it is to crawl underneath it, and that is the low crawl carry. Now, on the low crawl carry, we can essentially move into it from any position once we have the patient on the ground. The 4 team members on the command low crawl carry move will drop down on their sides, all facing in the same direction, facing the litter. They'll have one hand grasping their litter handle, the other hand grasping the side rail of the litter. The team leader will then give the commands, ready, lift. On the command lift, the team will lift the litter into the air 3 to 4 inches, move it forward 3 to 4 inches, and set the litter back down. They will then crawl up again alongside of it and continue in this manner until they have in fact cleared the obstacle. Now, it's important that you don't drag the litter. Dragging the litter could possibly collapse a spreader bar, allowing further injury to your patient, or start dragging the patient and tearing your canvas. So we want to ensure that we pick that litter up and move it forward and set it down. We give the command, ready, lift, because if at any time one patient, or one should say member of the team, is not ready, they can let the team leader know. They may have to move rocks out of their way. They may haven't crawled up yet. They may have a piece of equipment in their way, something of that nature. They need to work as a team, so they'll let each other know if they are in fact ready. Once they have cleared the obstacle that they're crawling under, if the team leader wants the team to continue on and move out, they can simply then give the command, prepare to lift. At that time, the 4 team members would come back to one knee and be ready to raise the litter and move on. Or if the team needs a break, they can simply give the command, recover. Demonstration team. Low crawl carry, move. Under the team leader's command now, giving the ready and the lift, they will move the litter into the air and slightly forward.
Ready, lift.
Continuing to crawl up with the team.
Ready, lift. Ready, lift.
Demonstration team, prepare to lift. Recover. Now, obviously you're not going to find obstacles that are specifically like this for you all the time in the field. Many of these carries that you've seen this morning are going to have to be utilized with lots of common sense. What may work for one team may not work for another team. And again, we'd like to point out that the patient's safety is the utmost thing of concern in our minds. What we would like to do with you now is show you some footage of some films we have taken of this team moving through some obstacles in a field environment. Our first is a set of logs. The team will move into this obstacle, move into a litter post carry, and work the team over in sequence. They've gone to a litter post carry and will now begin moving team members across the obstacle. As they complete each of these obstacles, the team will then go back into a 4-person carry because, again, it is the easiest carry to use whenever you can. The next obstacle you'll see will be that of low barbed wire tanglefoot. Here we need a carry that's going to provide additional stability to the team in case one member were to trip and fall. Again, the team will use the litter post carry. Note, as the team members through the wire, the personnel along the side rails do not cross their feet. They sidestep, lessening the chances of falling and thereby hopefully preventing an injury to the patient. Again, if one team member should fall, we note that the team still can support the weight of the patient. The next obstacle that you'll see simulates moving through a trench or high water, necessitating the use of the overhead carry. The team turns and faces each other, decides who's moving to the inside and who to the outside. Talk the litter into the air, move to the positions they decided, and continue through the obstacle. It's necessary that they talk to each other as they move through this type of obstacle, letting each other know what they're coming up. As they finish moving through the obstacle, the last team member will let them know when they've completed it, they cleared it, so that they can then move back to a 4-person carry. Stairs, in this case, could represent moving a patient in or out of a building, possibly going up bridges and things of that nature. Essentially, the stairs going up and down are nothing more than uphill and downhill, so we need to rotate the patient to get the patient's head moving up the stairs. Again, the weight of the patient will be at the rear of the litter, necessitating 2 people back there. The team leader guides them up. Again, the 2 personnel at the rear will work to keep the litter level. In this case, the team is about ready to move downstairs, which essentially means that they're going downhill, and they again need to rotate the patient, again keeping the head closest to the surface of the ground. Here, the weight is shifting to the front of the litter as they go down. Team leader provides support as they move down the steps, and also the front team members will work to keep the litter level. Again, they go back to the 4-person carry. Passing through culvert pipe or underneath the ditch could pose a problem. For this, the team will use the modified 2-person carry. Here you see the team members turning and facing the patients, and then they're going to crouch low, not bending completely at the backs, but also at the knees. Notice that the number 1 and the number 4 team members guide the heads and shoulders of the team through as the other team watches the patient. Again, guiding the team, making sure that they don't drop the patient or possibly injure themselves in this type of obstacle. Once clearing the obstacle again, the team would go back into a 4-person carry and continue on. Moving downhill in rough terrain could cause a problem and be rather dangerous to the patient. Again, the team will simply move into the downhill carry, providing additional support at the front of the litter, and the team leader helping to pick the path, warning them of possible dangerous spots as they go down. Once they're back on flat, smooth terrain, they can again go back to the 4-person carry. Here we see the team beginning to move up a hill. They're going to have to rotate the patient again to keep the patient's head close to the ground. After they've rotated the patient, the number 4 person again slides to the rear of the litter to provide that additional support. The number 1 team leader can then, in this case, move up the hill slightly ahead of them, helping them pick the path, moving them around branches, trees, things of that nature. Again, when we get to the top of the hill, since we want the patient's feet headed in a direction of travel, the team again will rotate the patient around. They'll go back to the 4-person carry and continue to move their patient. A high wall can present a real problem to a litter team, or you may be trying to move a patient through a window in a wall. Here, using a little bit of a modification of the overhead carry, they move part of the patient over the wall. Note that they have the front stirrups over the wall to provide security for that litter patient. They will move the litter forward again, keeping the back stirrups, or at the head of the patient, again on the opposite side of the wall to hold the patient. The team members move over in sequence and then lift the patient over the wall and carefully lower the patient down and continue on. Narrow footbridges can present a problem to a team because you can't move through them in the 4-person carry. Here you'll see the team move into a 2-person carry to move across the bridge. Again, as the team completes this obstacle, they would move into a 4-person carry and continue on. Probably one of the most strenuous obstacles that you can come across is low barbed wire. Here the team setting the patient down and getting ready to go into the low crawl. Necessary that they then begin lifting the patient, moving it forward and setting the patient back down, crawling up alongside and continuing to move. One of the things that these people try to remain aware of is just how high they're lifting the patient, making sure that that patient, no way, gets pushed into that barbed wire and possibly has another injury incurred. Once the team clears the obstacle, they can get up and move away. Hopefully your patient is in excellent condition.
Were you the patient in that film?
Yes, sir, I was.
I had a sneaking suspicion that was the case.
I had a rather good day.
I'm sure you did. Captain Bluto, thank you very much for your presentation on litter carriers this morning. Before we get into any questions and answers, let me remind our television audience that this is a live and interactive program, that you can ask questions of Captain Bluto and of his team if you'd like, a relatively high-priced team at that. In any event, we're going to continue putting our telephone numbers on the screen periodically to remind you what they are. If you'd like to give us a call this morning to comment about the program or to ask a question about some of the techniques that were covered, well, don't think twice about it. Just go out there, get a phone, and do it. Okay? That's an order. I talk about authoritarian.
Right.
You know, you covered that topic very, very well.
Well,
So well, in fact, that I can't think of anything that's really all that unusual, something I'd want to ask you about litter carries. I've got, you know, 2 or 3 things that come to mind right off the bat. Like, for example, when you have a situation where it is completely unavoidable that you cannot get people of equal height to carry the litters, what do you do?
Well, you're just going to really have to use your common sense and compensate as best you can. Obviously, we don't have everybody the same height in the Army, so you want to try and space your people out, possibly putting the 2 tallest at the opposite end so that they can kind of keep it a little bit level. And just going to have to work out. Some of your shorter team members may have to try and hold the litter up a little bit, and taller team members crouch a little low. But that's a real problem. There's really no way around that.
What about that instance in the film you had where people were going through the culvert? Now, they were actually bent over holding that litter, right?
They sure are, and that's, you know, it's important when you do that you, in fact, bend both at the knees and the back. If you just bend straight at the back, keeping your legs straight, you're going to have a real hard time making any long obstacle like that. Very tough.
Not to mention the fact you may wind up as a litter case yourself.
That sure could. Easy throw out a back.
What happens when you have someone to carry that's obese? Now, I know that's almost unheard of in the Army, but supposing we should have a civilian counterpart who's injured and we'd like to transport them.
Well, again, your litter team is just going to have to reach down and get a little bit more strength, a little bit more initiative, and pick that patient up. If possible, you're just going to have to give your team more breaks. If they get to the point where they're so tired moving a heavy patient that there's a chance of dropping the patient, you're better off putting the litter down, allowing your team to recover, get a break, catch your breath, and then continue to move on.
How far are we going to have to move a litter patient in the next war?
Hopefully we won't be moving them very far. We'd like to think that our air and ground evacuation assets will be able to come wherever our patients are generated and move them from that point. However, there's always the time that we're going to have to move patients, particularly those people that are operating very close to initial lines of contact. They're going to have to move patients. But it's not just a combat environment. We're going to have to be moving patients every day on litters in and out of emergency rooms of our local hospitals, mass casualty situations, civilian emergencies, things of that nature. So hopefully we don't want to move them a long ways, but if you move, as people that have gone through the litter ops course tell you, if you move a patient 1,000 meters, you've worked.
That's a lot of effort.
That's a lot of effort.
Are we going to have litter team or litter companies or platoons? You know, back in World War II, particularly in the Pacific, well, I guess all over, there were litter, I don't know what you call them, litter companies or litter platoons or whatever, where they actually had litter bearers, and that was their sole responsibility.
Well, within our division clearing stations, we do have 91B personnel whose job title is litter bearer.
Okay.
Their prime responsibility is moving patients out of vehicles from ward to ward, tent, X-ray to OR, back into aircraft, unloading aircraft. It's going to be a long, hard work for them. We do still have units on the books known as litter teams. I don't know if there's any active, but maybe in a conflict some of those could be activated.
Okay. Yeah, that's an important consideration. I think most of us, when we think about it, see ourselves as litter bearers.
That's correct.
I could just imagine spending a week doing that, you know, 24 hours a day or something. Holy mackerel. Okay, what about the situation where you only have 2 litter bearers, a man at the head and a man at the foot? And he's faced with the same obstacles that you were before with a 4-man team. We've got a water obstacle, we've got an obstacle uphill, downhill, this type of thing. All those variations are out, right? You just do the best you can. You
do the best you can. Again, as we said earlier in the program, common sense is going to weigh very heavily on how you work these obstacles. Many people out there may say, well, gee, I think I could get over that high wall in a lot better method than that. And there probably are some systems that move over smoother. If you have 2 people, again, you're just going to have to use your good common sense and work with the basics.
Okay. One last question before we leave, and we've just about covered this topic about as well as anybody could cover it, I would imagine. No sense in killing a dead horse or beating a dead horse, the case might be. You see a lot of situations in the movies and in the field where a man will put a harness over his shoulders and attach it to the handles of the litter, so that a lot of the weight is on his shoulders. In other words, when he stands up, it's actually a harness type of thing. Is that an approved method? Is it something we commonly do?
I don't think it is something that we commonly do, particularly in the military. Anybody at any time in the military could become a litter bearer, regardless of his MOS, where he's acting. We can't have people running around with harnesses on all day in combat And I think for somebody that was going to do that on a long-term, continued basis might be a good idea, but in the military, it's probably a little bit of a luxury.
I like that kind of luxury. I happen to be the one that's carrying a litter. You want to sum up what you've told us today on litter bearers or litter carriers?
Well, basically what I like to say is that it's just carrying a patient on a litter is not an easy job. It's difficult. It takes a lot of common sense and hard work. Many of our enlisted personnel today do this a lot during the day, and if we have an appreciation of how hard they work at it, the type of job that it is, we can work better with them. And again, we could all be litter bearers at any time, both in peace and combat, and if we have a basic knowledge of it, we can be a little bit more efficient medical unit.
Okay. Is this something, this litter carry, is that something you should include in your unit's training, you know, that 2 or 3 day training when you go out to take the unit out to the field? And
Absolutely, absolutely.
And this is also tested in the FMB, right?
This is a test in the Expert Field Medical Badge. It's in many of the programs of instruction here at the Academy, and it's definitely something that's needed by all medical units.
Good. All right, well, we'll send them a tape.
Okay.
Give them the first-hand look at exactly what litter carries are all about. Well, listen, thank you very much, Captain Luton. Appreciate you coming down to Studio B this morning. Appreciate your team, and I appreciate Colonel Neitzel's Military Science Division for allowing you to take the time out of your busy work day to go out to Camp Bullis and film these things. I know that's tedious, hot, and tiring work. Right?
Yes, it is.
Go have an iced tea on me.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you later. Okay, well, if this is the very first time you've tuned into Studio B, let me remind you that we are a live and interactive program that's brought to you at 10 o'clock each day of the work week from 10 to 1100 hours. And, of course, we are only one half of the total Health Service Command television network. The other half is Brooke Army Medical Center's program that runs from 12 to 1 o'clock. Our program, Studio B, is designed to bring command education, information, readiness-enhancing training to the individual soldier, whereas Brooke Army Medical Centers concentrates primarily on continuing medical education. If you've got a need for either or both areas, we invite you to tune in and see what we're doing and see if you can't benefit from some of our programs. Oh, that reminds me. If you don't know what's coming up, of course, you can't use those programs, and to that end, we publish this thing called TV Review. It's a synoptic outline of all the programs that Brooke Army Medical Center and the Academy of Health Sciences do each day. Tells you pretty much all you need to know about what's coming up, what we're going to cover, and why. So if you feel as though you have a need, you'll know that this is the time to watch, and we want you to tune in. By the way, we don't expect everybody to watch every program. That's not the purpose. If there's something on there that's specifically and uniquely of use to you, watch it. If it's not, it's okay. If you don't have a copy of TV Review, and you can get one by calling my office at Audubon 471-4664, or if you're here in the local area, 221-4664, and we'll not only send you this month's current issue, but also put you on the mailing list for all future issues so you know what's coming up in advance. But if you don't have a copy, let me just remind you of what's coming up. Tomorrow, the 22nd of September, we have a program entitled Inspection of Market-Ready Beef for Specification Requirements. I think you might find that even though that's directed at the 91R, that if you are anywhere involved in buying meat in the commissary, or if you have any interest at all about meat itself, you might want to tune into this because it's a pretty informative program across the board for a lot of people. On the 23rd of September, we have urinary catheterization. The satellite team will be back with us to show us pretty much what we need to know about that. Finally, on Thursday, we have Great Ocean Perch Fillets, another program which is designed to enhance the 91R's career training. But here again, if you have interest in what you're buying in the commissary or anything that has to do with this type of food, you might want to turn and see what's going on. And then last but not least, Friday this week, and I want you to make a note of it on your calendar because it's an important day, we have a 2-hour special from 0900 to 1100 hours. The first hour, 0900 to 1000 hours, will be on EPMS. Colonel Fuller from the Health Services branch at the Combat Service Support Career Division up in Washington will be here to talk to us about EPMS. If you're an enlisted soldier, an NCO, just came in the Army, whatever, and you'd like to know about your career field and the management of it, where it's going, that's the program you want to see. The second hour, 10 to 11 o'clock, will be on OPMS, or DOPMA, and DOPMA, by the way. It'll be presented by Colonel Harrington from the Health Service, who is the Health Service Personnel Manager, Director of Personnel at OTSG. He's a very knowledgeable individual on DOPMA, probably the key individual we're going to be able to find in the local area on this, coming down here special for us. If there's any questions you have on OPMS or DOPMA, that's the program you want to see. If you're an officer in the Army Medical Department, I'd definitely tune in. Well, listen, it's been great having you with us this morning. We appreciate, like I said, you taking time out of your busy workday to join us here on Studio B. We know sometimes it's difficult to find the time, and we appreciate your being here. Well, I'm Major Keller. This is Studio B, and we hope you have a very healthy day.